artist that rarely creates my own characters. So this year I challenged myself to create a character based on every star sign. Since it's now Sagittarius season, let's create a fairy with a twist. I'm gonna be completely honest with you. I made this Pinterest board a couple of months ago and I don't really remember. So this is gonna be a mystery for both of us. Let's have a look. My Pinterest is ChantelleArts, same as everywhere else. And the board is character design star sign. Everything is in order from the bottom. We've got Sagittarius. I'm still in this sketchbook. We did Scorpio last time, so I might just pop it here. I have to find a way to use up these sides. And the sketches we're doing is just a nice easy way to not disturb last year's Peachtober. Oh, it's surprisingly long for a word. I think this is where it went wrong in the middle. Honestly, I keep spelling Sagittarius wrong. I keep putting 2 G's and I know that doesn't look right, but I'm not sure 2 T's looks correct either. The symbol for a Sagittarius is this cool kind of arrow shape. I like it. That was quite big, but I'm a fan. Kind of explains that one. The archetype is the archer. The colours are really quite interesting. Dark purples, turquoise, and reds. And there's also a random yellow. But I think I'll lean into what they've said. So I've got these 3. I'm not sure that's exactly a dark purple, but it's probably closest to the colour. Oh, that's interesting. The element is fire. We have to draw that. How do I draw fire? Is that fire? This pencil is getting a little bit stubby now, but I really like this one. Okay, next. The shape is the pentagon, but I'm not going to include that. The flower is Anthurium. And the ruling planet is Jupiter. I feel like this should be coloured in, really. Might just quickly do that. Well, there we are. Let's quickly go through some of the strengths and weaknesses of a Sagittarius. Some strengths are they are optimistic, tolerant, have a good sense of humour, are generous and enthusiastic. So all traits that make up a nice person. Moving on to the weaknesses. Not persistent, exaggerative, talks too much, pushy and procrastinating. Honestly, I don't think they're that bad. Like, talks too much? It's not really much of a weakness, like, they're not violent like Scorpios. And this is November 22nd, because I know I have been forgetting the dates for most of them, to December 21st. Okay, we've got the components of a Sagittarius. Should we have a look at some art? A lot of the art really leans into the bow and arrow, and we've got similar colour palettes for each of them. This is a little witchy gal, which I think is so cute. And this one doesn't have a person, but again, it's those components. Moving on to our character. I have a few ideas in mind. This is the body type of our character, and I quite like this kind of fashion. The clothes are going to be a big part of this character. This is where I began, and then I kind of moved on to this look, and then we went down a little bit of a rabbit hole. This character, this archer, works as an assassin, and the clothes are very futuristic. Only problem is I'm not sure how that's going to work with the colour palette that we've got. On to the second part. This character is a fairy. You're going to have to come with me on this journey. I've got lots of little fairy wings here, and this is the pose that we're going to use. So if we combine all of that, we've got a fairy assassin with a bow and arrow. Do you have faith we're going to pull this together? That's the route we're going. We're trying a lot with this character. I'm kind of hoping it's going to work, but I don't know if it will. Let's start the sketch. Now, I might actually have to sharpen this one. I've lost the pencil. Ooh, better. Even smaller. It can be so difficult to sketch with stubby pencils. Ah, that's better. Those are the 3 colours. Where do I begin? I'm tempted to go really far across, but obviously the paper is portrait, so it's going to have to be like this. I think this is going to be a cool story too. We'll go through the story later on. So, as for the pose that we've chosen, I'll probably put the rock quite low down so that we can still include most of the character. I would like to get a lot of detail in, so we kind of need the character to still be quite big. And that's kind of why I've chosen this pose rather than one standing up. The body is still kind of compressed.
Friday night, turned on all her lights. Ooh, an open window. Hairbrush at her lips, towel hugs her hips. Ooh, she's going out. Slips on her dress, stumbles toward the shower, lives for what feels like an hour, then turns up the song. Just another.
The background is kind of going to be like a blurry forest, which goes with the story that you'll find out in a little bit. The hair will probably change. The rock is going to be blurry as well, so the focus is on her. The clothes obviously need to be part of the colour palette, so I'm not sure how that's going to work. I need to figure out what she's actually going to look like, because obviously we're not really representing what her face will look like here and what her body type is, because it's more like trying to figure out what it will look like. So I'll figure that out when it comes to the actual drawing. But for now, this is the first sketch of our Sagittarius gal, and this is what the page is looking like. I'm going to go and work on the actual sketch now on Arch's paper, and I'll see you when we come back here for the original painting and story. Here is the sketch. It didn't go perfectly. You can see it's not looking very much like the original sketch in my sketchbook, but that's okay. We're gonna work with it. Not because I have any confidence that we're gonna pull this off, but because I used colour pencil that won't erase, so we're gonna give it a go. Well, anyway, I have a tea. Gossip Girl. I'm about 10 years late to that party, but I've started. It's very grey outside. Unfortunately, it's gonna be like this for a long while now. Summer really is the best time to film videos. And that's everything. Let's get painting. We're using watercolour as always. And I have been loving this series. Finding out about all of the star signs. I had heard of them and read some horoscopes before as a child in magazines, but I never expected them to be this interesting and varied, but also very clear. I think I was expecting them to be a lot more vague than they are, but there's definitely a lot to learn from each of them. Sagittarius is unlike any other star sign I've read about. They really do seem unique. Sagittarius is both the last fire sign and the last mutable sign, huge indicators of transformation. This sign is also represented as both the archer and the centaur, which is kind of weird. As the archer, it's represented as human, but as the centaur, it's counted as a non-human sign, and I've never seen this before. Apparently, the centaur is the Greek centaur called Chiron. I don't think we'll be using this, but I do like the name. Sagittarius is ruled by Jupiter, and apparently Jupiter means abundance. If Sagittarius is going to do something, they will go all in. Combining this with the passion of a fire sign leads to incredibly intense, but quite fickle devotion. Sagittarius are known to be optimistic, generous, and tolerant. What they value most in life is freedom. Freedom to express themselves, freedom to explore new lands and topics. They want to experience everything that life can offer and take nothing too seriously as a result. Every setback is just a new path forward. They're bright and bold, with a fantastic sense of humour, which is definitely a good thing, since these archers tend to only look forward. As Sagittarius is so positive and passionate, they are incredibly direct and blunt in conversation. They'll say what they think and not care about any of the consequences. This does often lead them into trouble as they offend other people around them. The ever-changing quality of the archer being both immutable and fire sign can also lead others to see them as fickle and unreliable bubble. But even if this is true, it's never from a place of selfishness. It's simply that Sagittarius has found something new and that's taken over everything. And a lot of the traits that Sagittarius have been linked to neurodivergence, which is an interesting comparison. So let's hear about the latest character. Chiron is a fairy. She was born to a small clan of woodland fae, and from the moment she was born, she was only given one task. Just the one thing was drilled into Chiron: protect the forest. To be fair, she was given a lot of freedom in childhood. She used a bow, whilst the other fairies used spears. She was allowed to go where she pleased and wear what she wanted, as long as she stayed in the woods and protected the forest. But she is the kind of person that wouldn't have listened even if they said no. She always pushed boundaries, explored new areas of the forest when she should have been in class, and tended to miss or forget her chores. She was often labelled as lazy, even though, in her defense, she was just too busy doing other things, finding secret little treasures that no one else knew about. When she finally earned her wings, she was overjoyed. More than ever, she could explore the forest, go higher and further than ever before. This dream was soon shattered as she was given her duty, a protector and guard of their kingdom's glade. Chiron found her days now consumed with boredom. To stand in one spot, fly to the next, stand there for a little while, and repeat day after day after day. All that freedom she'd been accustomed to had been taken away by this one role. She was proud to do her duty and often wished that that would just make her happy. She did try, but it didn't. She made friends with all of the other guards, making stories for the little children, and whenever there was laughter, you can bet Chiron was at the center of it. But this was not enough. She would look out at the forest and beyond and spend hours imagining the kind of adventures she could have been on. To keep herself busy, Chiron would train. She wanted more freedom, and to do that, she had to become a windrunner. The fairy windrunners were the best of the best. They would go outside of the glade, scout for danger, and even go as far as traveling to other fairy lands, places that she'd never been before. They were everything that she'd wanted, whilst also holding up her duty of protecting the forest. And it's not like she didn't want to do her duty, she just wanted more. So she trained every single day, morning, noon, and night. She'd often turn up late to her shift, covered in mud and blisters. This did get her a night scrubbing the barracks toilets, but it didn't deter her. After years of hard work, she took the windrunner trials. For the first time, her more unique style worked in her favor. Whilst the examiners didn't exactly approve of her more abstract way of thinking, they couldn't deny that it was effective. And so, her dreams of becoming a windrunner came true. As was tradition, she was given a new title, named after one of the founding fae. Chiron was then on named Sagittarius. As a windrunner, Sagittarius could basically do what she wanted. As long as she was back every so often with a report or new information, she could do as she pleased. This did have its limits though. She could go where she wanted as long as she followed one simple rule: do not talk or communicate or even be seen by the big folk. As long as they weren't harming the forest, they left them alone. Sagittarius hated this rule, especially after one day where she saw a young girl talking to the trees like they were her friends, and a strange old woman who always seemed to know where Sagittarius was. All she wanted to do was talk to them, learn from them, hear stories about far-off lands. She wanted to, but this soon became the least of her concerns. With her new title of Windrunner, Sagittarius assumed she was a scout. Go out beyond the border, collect information, and return to the kingdom. This wasn't exactly true. She got called up for her first hunt. Apparently, a terrifying monster had been harming the forest, destroying trees and setting fires that threatened the glade. As a proud windrunner, Sagittarius answered the call to action. She flew with her hunting party to the far south of the forest to find their prey. To her horror, it was one of the big folk, and one that she recognized. He was what they called a farmer. She didn't exactly know what that meant, but what she did know is that it meant he looked after the land, cared for animals, and had two small things that lived with him, maybe children. She had seen enough to know that he was good, not a threat in the slightest. She tried to explain this to her captain, but they wouldn't listen. To them, this farmer was a threat to be eliminated, and eliminate they did. Sagittarius couldn't believe it. They had just killed an innocent, good person rather than speaking to him, just because that's what they were told to do. She couldn't do that, not at all. Horrified about what she'd witnessed, Sagittarius simply left. She saw the young girl, the tree friend, with a red head, and simply decided to follow them. Inspired by their own freedom and joy, Sagittarius went off on her own, exploring strange lands of ice and sand and mountains and seas. She saw more than she ever thought possible and never looked back. And that is the slightly sad tale of Sagittarius. This painting didn't exactly go to plan. The anatomy in the sketch was off to begin with, but you know what? She's a fairy. The proportions of a fairy probably would be different to us. I do love the colour palette though. It was a lot of fun to work with, and I love making messy backgrounds like this one. So I really hope you like it. Make sure you subscribe because next week is a big one. I'll be back here on Friday to take part in a huge worldwide collab with 17 other incredible artists. And I can't wait. I'll see you then. Bye bye.